Have you ever felt like you're chasing your own tail, endlessly scrolling through social media while deadlines loom over you? I'm Jessica, and not long ago, I found myself in a rut so deep that I missed out on a friend's wedding, delayed a big project at work, and let my passion project gather digital dust, all because I was stuck in a loop of distraction. It wasn't until I looked at my calendar one morning and realized I'd wasted nearly 3 months of my life on meaningless diversions that I decided enough was enough. Did you know that on average, people procrastinate for 55 days a year? That's almost 2 months of your precious time slipping through your fingers. I felt frustrated, disappointed, and honestly, a little ashamed. But I also felt curious. Why do we do this to ourselves? Today, I want to share the psychology behind procrastination, why our brains betray us at the worst possible moment, and more importantly, how we can break free from the cycle. Imagine what you could accomplish if you reclaimed even half of that lost time. I realized procrastination wasn't just laziness. It was a signal that something deeper was going on in my mind. A fear of failure, a craving for comfort, a lack of clear structure. Each time I clicked next video or hit snooze, I was feeding a habit that left me feeling guilty and stuck. But I also discovered that procrastination isn't a permanent sentence. There are practical, science-backed strategies that can help us overcome this tendency, step by step, day by day. And that's exactly what we're diving into today. When I finally dug into the research on procrastination, I was amazed by what I found. It's not a character flaw. It's a survival mechanism. Our brains are wired to avoid discomfort, and sometimes the discomfort of starting a task feels greater than the discomfort of delaying it. But here's the exciting part. By understanding the triggers behind procrastination, we can rewire our habits and make progress feel easier, more rewarding, and even enjoyable. Over the next hour or so, I'll walk you through 8 key psychological concepts, from time inconsistency to the 2-minute rule, each paired with simple definitions, actionable tips you can try today, and vivid examples from my own life and those of people I've coached. I'll share the moment I turned my camera on to record a single minute of video and how that tiny step sparked a creative surge that carried me through an entire project. I'll ask you questions along the way. So grab a notebook, maybe brew a cup of coffee, and let's get honest about why we procrastinate and how to finally stop. Ready to dive in? By the end of this episode, you'll have a toolkit of strategies you can personalize to your own rhythm. Whether you're a night owl racing the clock, a perfectionist paralyzed by fear, or someone who simply gets lost in the internet rabbit hole. This isn't about willpower alone. It's about designing your life so that the path of least resistance leads to progress instead of delay. So if you've ever wondered, what's wrong with me? Or why can't I just get things done? Take a deep breath, because you're about to discover that procrastination is not your enemy. It's a puzzle you can solve. Let's jump in. Let's start with the idea of time inconsistency. Simply put, time inconsistency is the gap between what we plan to do in the future and what we actually do when that future arrives. Our brain values immediate rewards far more than future benefits. So when it's time to sit down and write that report or start that workout, the pull of Netflix and snacks can feel irresistible. Neurologically, the limbic system lights up at the thought of instant pleasure, while the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for long-term planning, plays catch-up. To apply this concept in daily life, we need to shrink the gap between planning and action using commitment devices, tools that lock you into a decision you'll thank yourself for later. For example, I once prepaid for a monthly co-working space membership. Every morning, instead of scrolling through Instagram, I had to get out the door because I'd already invested money. That small financial nudge turned into a powerful motivator. You can create your own commitment device by scheduling a friend to check in on your progress, or by putting $1 in a jar every time you slip up. You might also set a calendar alert that locks your phone for an hour, or leave a sticky note on your computer screen with a reminder of why this project matters. These micro-commitments accumulate and rewire your brain's reward pathways over time, making the act of starting feel less daunting and more automatic. Have you ever found yourself saying, "I'll do it tomorrow," only to repeat the same cycle? That's time and consistency in action. By catching yourself in that moment and introducing a commitment device, you can start bridging the gap between your good intentions and your actual behavior. What would happen if you treated tomorrow's plan as a binding promise instead of a vague idea? Another powerful force fueling procrastination is our craving for instant gratification. In an era of on-demand everything, our brains have become hypersensitive to immediate rewards. Checking a notification, watching a funny clip, or ordering takeout delivers a quick dopamine hit, while starting that big presentation offers delayed satisfaction, if any. Science shows that the anticipation of reward can be as motivating as the reward itself. So to apply this concept, we need to reframe our tasks to include small, immediate wins. One strategy is to break projects into micro goals and celebrate each milestone. When I was drafting my last ebook, I turned each section into a separate document and set a timer for just 10 minutes of focused writing. After each 10-minute sprint, I treated myself to a sip of tea and a 5-minute stretch. That little ritual of reward transformed the task from a looming mountain into a series of tiny, conquerable hills. I even created a visual progress bar on my whiteboard. Every time I completed a section, I colored in a segment, and that simple act gave me a surge of accomplishment. Soon, I found myself racing to color more segments, not out of perfectionism, but because the act itself felt good. Next time you feel the urge to scroll through social media, pause and ask, what's the smallest possible step I can take right now to move forward? That micro action can give you a hit of satisfaction, propelling you into the next one. Instant gratification doesn't have to be the enemy. It can be your ally when you harness it correctly. Have you ever turned a daunting task into a game of tiny wins? How did that feel? Decision fatigue is another stealthy culprit that often leads us down the procrastination path. Every choice we make, from what to eat for breakfast to which email to reply to, depletes our mental energy. By the time we reach our most important tasks, our decision-making reserves are low, and we tend to opt for the easiest option, avoiding the task altogether. Research shows judges are more likely to grant parole early in the day than late afternoon, illustrating how decision fatigue affects even high-stakes choices. The solution? Reduce the number of trivial decisions so you can preserve mental bandwidth for the big ones. In my own life, I realized that choosing my outfit, planning my meals, and deciding on workout times each morning was draining my willpower before I even sat down to write. I experimented by creating a simple weekly menu plan, laying out my clothes the night before, and batching my email responses into 2 dedicated slots per day. Suddenly, I had extra mental clarity for my core projects. You can apply this by automating or delegating low-stakes decisions. Subscribe to a coffee delivery service with your favorite blend, set up recurring grocery orders, or create a rotation of go-to outfits. As you clear the clutter of minor choices, you'll find it easier to dive into the tasks that matter. Think about your morning routine. How many small decisions do you make before breakfast? What could you streamline today to save your brain power for the real work? The environment around you can either invite procrastination or help you overcome it. This is where environmental design comes into play. Environmental design means arranging your physical or digital space to make productive behaviors easier and unproductive ones harder. Think about how you leave your phone on your desk with notifications buzzing. That's an open invitation to distraction. To apply this, start by identifying your biggest temptations and then create friction. I once noticed that my browser bookmarks were littered with social media and news sites, so I reorganized them into a productivity folder and hid the rest. I also installed a website blocker that kicked in after just 5 minutes of browsing. On the physical side, I cleared my desk of everything except my laptop and a water bottle, turning my workspace into a distraction-free zone. I also place my journal on my pillow so I remember to reflect before bed, and I stick a motivational quote on my bathroom mirror to start each day with purpose. These small tweaks shape your behavior without relying on willpower. Behavioral scientist B.J. Fogg calls these tiny prompts, signals that nudge you toward a desired action. By shaping your environment, you're basically outsourcing self-control to the world around you. Give it a try and watch how your habits follow suit. What one change can you make right now to redesign your space for success? Temptation bundling is a concept popularized by behavioral economist Katie Milkman, And it's all about pairing something you should do with something you want to do. The idea is simple. You only allow yourself to indulge in a pleasurable activity while performing a productive one. Research from the University of Pennsylvania found that participants who used temptation bundling exercised 51% more than those who didn't. The beauty of this strategy is its flexibility. You can bundle virtually any two activities. Personally, I used to dread my daily journaling, so I decided that I could only listen to my favorite true crime podcast while I wrote. Suddenly, journaling felt less like a chore and more like a reward. Over time, I found myself reaching for my journal first thing in the morning because I wanted to keep listening. Another example is only watching a new TV episode while on the treadmill, or reserving your go-to latte for days when you've completed a focused work block. The key is to make the reward contingent on the productive behavior. The pairing creates a dopamine double whammy: anticipation for the fun activity and the satisfaction of progress. Over time, your brain begins to associate the productive task itself with positive feelings, making it easier to get started even without the external treat. Have you tried pairing a task you avoid with something you love? What combination could you experiment with this week? Implementation intentions are a deceptively simple yet powerful tool for beating procrastination. Coined by psychologist Peter Gollwitzer, the concept involves planning exactly when and where you'll perform a behavior using an if-then statement. For example, instead of saying, "I'll work on my project tomorrow," you say, "If it's 9 a.m. on Monday, then I will sit at my desk and write for 30 minutes. This specificity primes your brain to notice the right moment and act automatically. Studies show that participants with implementation intentions were twice as likely to follow through on their goals compared to those with simple intentions. To apply this in your daily life, choose a key task and craft a clear if-then plan. When I wanted to build a daily meditation habit, I set the intention: if I finish breakfast, then I will meditate for 5 minutes in my living room. Because the trigger was part of my routine, the behavior became nearly effortless. You can use them for anything: sending that email, going for a run, or even tidying your workspace. Write down your plan, speak it aloud, and post it somewhere visible. The more precise you are, the better. Have you ever noticed how much easier it is to act when you know exactly what to do and when? Implementation intentions could be the missing link between your goals and your achievements. Next up is the Pomodoro Technique, a time management method developed by Francesco Cirillo that breaks work into intervals. Traditionally, 25 minutes of focused work followed by a 5-minute break. The rhythm of intense concentration and short rests helps prevent burnout and keeps motivation high. To apply the Pomodoro Technique, choose a task, set a timer for 25 minutes, and work on it exclusively until the timer rings. Then, take a 5-minute break to stretch, grab a glass of water, or step outside for fresh air. After 4 Pomodoros, reward yourself with a longer break, maybe a coffee break or a quick chat with a friend. Research suggests our ability to maintain attention diminishes after about 20 to 30 minutes, so Pomodoro's timing aligns perfectly with our cognitive rhythms. I started using a Pomodoro app that plays a gentle bell when it's time to break, helping me stay on track without watching the clock constantly. During my breaks, I stretch, practice a breathing exercise, or glance at a motivational quote taped to my wall. These mini reset moments keep me energized and prevent mental fatigue. Whether you're writing, coding, studying, or tackling household chores, the Pomodoro Technique can transform a daunting workload into bite-sized, energizing challenges. Have you tried working in focused sprints? What rhythm feels best for you? Finally, let's talk about the 2-minute rule, popularized by productivity expert David Allen. The rule is simple: if a task takes 2 minutes or less, do it immediately. The idea is that small tasks, replying to a quick email, washing a mug, filing a document, often accumulate and become overwhelming, so knocking them out as soon as they arise keeps your to-do list from growing out of control. In my experience, the 2-minute rule was a game changer for my email inbox. Instead of letting unread messages pile up, I processed any email I could answer in 2 minutes right away. The result? My inbox stayed clean, and I avoided the mental clutter of thousands of unopened messages. You can extend this to household chores. Fold a load of laundry when you walk past the dryer, wipe down a countertop as soon as you finish cooking, or jot down a quick idea instead of letting it slip away. The 2-minute rule works because it leverages momentum. Completing a tiny task gives you a sense of progress, which often inspires you to tackle something bigger next. I also found that telling myself, "I'll write for 2 minutes," made starting feel doable, even when my to-do list was overwhelming. More often than not, once I started, I'd keep going beyond those 2 minutes because the hardest part, getting started, was already behind me. Give it a try. The next time you notice a small task, ask yourself, can I do this in 2 minutes or less? If the answer is yes, just do it. You might be surprised how quickly those small wins build into real progress. As we've seen, procrastination isn't a moral failing. It's a complex dance between our desire for comfort and our need to make progress. We explored 8 science-backed strategies: understanding time inconsistency and using commitment devices, leveraging instant gratification with micro rewards, avoiding decision fatigue by automating choices, designing our environment to reduce friction, bundling temptations with tasks we avoid, crafting clear implementation intentions, harnessing the Pomodoro Technique's focused sprints, and applying the 2-minute rule to tackle small actions immediately. Each of these tools offers a practical way to outsmart our own instincts and create a workflow that feels natural and rewarding. The next time you catch yourself scrolling instead of starting, remember, it's not about willpower alone. It's about designing your habits and environment to make the right choice the easiest one. Which of these strategies will you try first? I believe in you. Every moment you spend procrastinating is an opportunity waiting to be claimed. Imagine looking back a month from now and realizing how much you've accomplished by simply applying one of these techniques. What would that feel like? So here's my challenge. Pick one strategy, commit to it for the next week, and notice how your relationship with your to-do list changes. Remember, progress is built one small action at a time. Even if you stumble, practice self-compassion. Each effort counts. I'd love to hear your experiences. Share in the comments which idea you'll try today and how it goes. If you found value in this episode, please give it a thumbs up. Share it with a friend who might need a productivity boost. And don't forget to subscribe for more psychology-backed insights every week. Next time, we'll dive into the science of habit formation. So stay tuned for tips on how to build lasting routines that stick. Thanks for listening, and here's to a more focused, fulfilling tomorrow.